I think my panel can also be called as human intelligence truly ruling the artificial intelligence in India. That's who truly you all are. But to start off with a very intro that we made, right? There's been very divergent views on LLMs versus use cases. So my question, obviously, what school of thought do you believe in? But primarily, why is this debate coming? We don't see the same debate coming in the US or EU or anywhere else, right? But why is it coming in India? Maybe Vivek, if you want to start.
So yeah, I think the answer is, it's a little bit of a nuanced answer, right? In the end, you know, when you're looking at AI, I think you got to focus on the use cases, right? The use cases are what drive things. And the truth is that for many useful use cases, things like either, you know, make no mistake, the frontier LLMs, you know, whether you're talking about the OpenAI or the Anthropics of the world, they're amazing and they're getting better. And, you know, why should India not have something like that? Maybe we should. But the question is that for most things that people want to do, okay, an SLM may actually be able to do some of those things more efficiently. In fact, the previous panel also, people were talking about that in a different context. So therefore, I think that if you look at it from a perspective of getting a lot of value out of AI, you don't need to necessarily have the largest LLMs to do that. And so therefore, you can do very, very useful things using SLMs or using LLMs that other people have created. But on the other hand, if you look at it from a little bit of a strategic perspective, or, you know, why should, I mean, because this could become a strategic issue in the future, that's a different take. And so therefore, different people would have views on that.
Yeah, very interesting question. This question is probably being triggered by the pre-LLM era, in my opinion. The pre-LLM era, I've worked with, well, even in the LLM era, I worked with a lot of industries. Adobe, IBM Research, we actually brought out some small language model with Adobe, also with several private entities. Now, what I realized in this long journey is that while we'll end up solving some problems, getting good publications, our students get placed in the best of these places. In fact, I have my students, yes, even at Mistral. What I realize in this entire process is we don't develop an ecosystem here. And I think this ecosystem is very important. If data is the oil and if the LLM is the car and the compute infra is the highway, right? Now, to create enough demand for the data and for the highways, you also need the cars. And you need to have the capability of manufacturing them. And that's what LLM manufacturing in India means. It's actually creating the ecosystem. And believe me, BharatGen is maybe 3 months old, and I'm happy that the Department of Science and Technology decided to fund it through a Section 8 route so that we have the best of academia and the best of delivery possible through the Section 8. We're actually paying quite well to hire the top of the notch graduates from our own institutions. This ecosystem requires us to have sovereignty technologically, right? So I think the resolution of this debate is when we realize that without an ecosystem which fosters public-private partnership and which also creates a level playing field overall, otherwise it's just going to be the rich getting the richer. I mean, the recipes are never, I would like to qualify the use of the word IP. I think we should be IP generators, as Mr. S. Krishnan pointed out. But this IP also includes recipes. This IP also includes the ability to fine-tune even the small language models without catastrophic forgetting. How do we do that? How do we even build solutions if we don't have that ability in-house? And that also forays into data sovereignty. So if we don't have the technological sovereignty, you're going to basically have all the data be sent out to these models outside India, which are getting better and better. This is my take on it.
Yes, Mitesh, you want to add?
So I think, I mean, to the question, rather, why is this debate, right? I think one reason is that we have the advantage of hindsight now, right? We have seen what has happened in the English world. We understand what is the cost of developing these things. And after investing so much, where has the technology gone? What has it benefited and so on? I think that's why that question comes up, that what path do we want to take? Because those paths are now available in hindsight. But my view would be on that, and sort of resonates with what the other two said, is that it has to be both, right? I mean, you have to focus on, you have to be grounded in use cases, right? But not just say that we'll not do anything beyond use cases, right? The use cases would just guide your development of LLMs. For example, once you start focusing on use cases, perhaps you might realize that in India, voice is what matters as opposed to text, right? And then maybe you decide that instead of building text LLMs, I would rather focus on audio LLMs or multimodal LLMs, right? So that's where both sort of need to go hand in hand. Focus on what you need and then build for that requirement, as opposed to just blindly building and then assuming that it will somehow find use cases, right?
Understood. So what I think what basically I understand is that India is taking a prudent approach, but the ecosystem that needs to go up in order to even talk about this debate further. But coming to you, Professor Ganesh, so you also mentioned about SLMs, right? Small language models, and there's growing excitement for SLMs as well. In fact, one of BharatGen's tool is Udan, which uses SLM, right? So can you tell us if India has that edge in SLM race, at least? Are we there yet?
I think, as has been pointed out several times, India is a use case capital for the world. So that really makes us a very ripe, fertile ground for SLMs. The advantage of SLMs is twofold. One is the quick turnaround time, and the other is human in the loop becomes a lot more possible. There has been a lot of angst about displacing radiologists. I happen to be the founding head of a Center for Digital Health at IIT Bombay, and I believe SLMs and language models in general are only going to get rid of quack work, right? It's going to sharpen the saw, the intellectual saw, the human in the loop saw, right? So I think SLMs are great from both these perspectives. The other important point is, even to build effective SLMs, we need data efficiency and compute efficiency, right? Unfortunately, as I said, there's a great skew in the number of players in this entire area, and largely that's because the redundancy in data is actually being compensated by throwing compute at the models. I think some sanity has to prevail very soon. I was with Jan Lekan, and we had a long discussion around the JPA, where he's trying to bring domain knowledge. If you want to predict the satellite orbit, right? I mean, you don't need zillions of images. You need 6 or 7 parameters. So better understanding of language is very important. Especially for us at BharatGen, the mandate is Indian languages. I think there's a lot of lexical, syntactic, phonetic similarity across Indian languages that can actually bring sanity in the way SLMs are also built. So yes, SLMs for these two reasons are important, but we need to become IP generators, IP producers in this process, because we have very, very unique use cases, and those unique cases are also opportunities for IP generation.
I think that's what even Mitesh Krishnan also spoke about. But Vivek, if you can add here,
Yeah,
right?
I
Because you built SLMs from scratch. So
Yeah.
if you can...
So we have actually had the opportunity to actually take, build an SLM, a 2 billion parameter model called Sarvam AI, which is state of the art in English compared to any other SLM. And it's trained using 5 trillion tokens, out of which 2 trillion tokens are Indic tokens. So this can be done, and it's built from scratch. It is open source, it is available, and people can use it. So therefore, I just want to show that we can do this. And I think that, but many ways, this is a stepping stone to do bigger things. And I think that's a kind of thing. And Mitesh talked about audio models. We've also actually open sourced an audio LM, which is now available for people, for researchers, for anybody to actually use, which actually, that is, that's an audio LM which allows you to speak in 10 languages, available as open source. And so I think that this is all ecosystem building, as Ganesh was saying. We have to build the ecosystem because we have to play in this game. I think India is too important a country to be far behind in some of these things. So, and I think that as somebody who has a startup here, but still we see that we are an ecosystem player, that we want to make sure that the entire ecosystem, and there are so many things that can be done with an SLM. I mean, just to give you an idea, Sarvam one is about 6 to 7 times more efficient than any other kind of LLM because of it was built with an Indian tokenizer, right, which actually allows Indian things to actually happen much more efficiently. So.
But do you also see what Professor Ganesh spoke about, the challenge within the data layer, right? Like data sovereignty. Do you also see that as a challenge because you've built it from scratch? Did you face it yourself?
Of course, the data didn't exist, right? I mean, and I think that, but it's interesting. So there are very clever things that you can do with synthetic data. And that's one of the big benefits that we have, which 2 years ago didn't exist, that allows us to create much more diverse data that allows, and it's very clear that, it's shown that actually compared to using data from the web and doing those kinds of things, this is actually giving you superior results because you are actually much more carefully curating the data that goes into the models.
Very interesting. Mitesh, I would want you to come in here. So you also spoke about voice, right? And our topic is taking Indic LLMs to billions of people. And one of the main focus of AI4Bharat is also that. So, but is it able to bridge the urban-rural or even urban versus tier 3 gap here? Like, are we there yet in terms of voice-led AI?
No, I don't think we are there yet, right? But there is every intention to get there. I think the best practices are being followed. What I see and what makes me happy is that even the fact that you're asking this question, that there's even enough awareness that needs to be done, right? It needs to be, AI should be accessible by all, irrespective of their language, irrespective of their accent, irrespective of their dialect, right? I think there's enough awareness in the ecosystem to do that, right? And of course, it will happen in stages, right? Of course, there'll be priority given to certain areas so that we can prove use cases, we can prove that this works, and then sort of keep going ahead, right? But no one is saying that it should be left out, or let's just focus on English, or let's just focus on the top 2-3 Indian languages by speaker population and so on, right? So efforts are being made in that direction. We ourselves have gone and collected data from, or at least are planning to finish this project by mid of next year, where we'll have data collected from 500 out of the 700 districts in the country. And this, of course, covers all the 22 scheduled languages. And since we are going to districts, naturally different accents show up, right? And naturally different demographics show up, right? So this is all a part of the sort of plan, right? And it's not just us, but I think everyone is aware of it, and everyone wants to work in that direction, and everyone understands the importance. So I'm very sort of bullish that it will organically go in that direction.
Understood. But is there any interesting anecdotes that you want to share? Bhashini's, Amitabh was here, he was talking about, he just did a live demo of how the phone call works, right? Instant translations and all that. So is there any interesting anecdote that inspires you to work on this voice-led?
I mean, I don't know about the inspiration part, but interesting anecdotes, there are several, right? And I jokingly say that now I've become an expert in all the festivals and holidays across the country. Because whenever our team goes out for a data collection drive, we get to hear, hey, this week it cannot happen because it's a festival here and so on. And one of the places where we are doing our collection, and this is a real conversation, in July we were told, oh, in August there's Ganesh Chaturthi, so we cannot do it. Next month after that, the rains will be quite heavy here, so it won't happen. After that, of course, there's Dashera. And then there's Diwali. So I said, okay, let's just do it in the new year then. That's a good plan, right? So I was saying it jokingly, but the person said, okay, that's what will work here, right? So there are quite a few such incidents and anecdotes that I would love to share in more detail at some point. But it has been a very fulfilling and enriching journey, traveling across the country, the team traveling across the country, and trying to cover as many languages and demographics as we can. Yeah.
Very interesting. So, Vivek, I know you're going to hate me for asking you this. You don't like to talk about the funding aspect a bit. But my question is, of course, it was a big milestone raising such a large round at an early stage, right? But is it also creating a sense there are a lot of young entrepreneurs here who want to build LLMs in the Indic space. But is it creating a sense that only if you get huge amount of funding, you will be even able to enter this race? Or like, what is your view on this?
So I think 2-3 things, right? I think that if you look at the costs of actually, if you want to get into an LLM, well, the costs of training an LLM have gone down by a factor of 10 for the same size. Of course, you want to train something bigger, it becomes more expensive. So therefore, it is actually getting more and more accessible. And I think that as regards funding, I think that there is a lot of funding in the world. I think if you have an idea that you can convince people about, I don't think that that's an issue at all, right? I think that, I think the question is, when you're looking at it, who's the customer, what are you going to serve, and how is that going to work is really the thing that you need to look at. So I think that I want to encourage as many people, and I really hope more and more companies get funded to do things that are relevant to India, right? I think that's the intent, because if there are more, some of them will succeed, and that's really what we want.
Right. So I think we've run out of time, but we have professors from IIT Madras and IIT Bombay. I can't be without asking this. Arvind of Perplexity is an alumnus of IIT Madras. But how do we make sure the next Arvind stays here in India, builds for India? Like, what role do institutions play here? If both of you can share your thoughts.
Thanks for this excellent question. And that probably also builds upon what Vivek was talking about. We'll need to create mechanisms by which academia and industry work together. I mean, BharatGen is an example where we have a public-private partnership by design, where the academia is not at an arm's length from the Section 8 company. They work very closely. And that has honestly helped us retain several of our top students, right? So that's point number one. We have the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We have experienced that. It's just 3 months old. And it's with them that we've been able to build our first 2 billion parameter model. I talked about it at the India Mobile Congress. But more importantly, when we work closely with such students, we also create alternatives. The other keyword I want to give is alternative. With the speech models, we are able to, for example, build models ranging from 35 million to 350 million. I think that creates a more level playing field. For people who need more fidelity, you have the high parameter models. A third point I want to bring in is when we work closely with academia, the recipes, unfortunately, there's a lot of black art here, right? Vivek, Mitesh, you would agree with me. There's too much black art out there. I think getting academia and this kind of a for-profit or even a revenue-generating entity to work closely together ensures sanity in the entire process. Even data, we are collecting data massively. What we have realized through the UDAN project and elsewhere is provenance is very important. I mean, provenance right from the way you generate Indian language data, even if you do high fidelity translation, can you make sure that the HOCR that is actually used to render the documents gives you alignment for OCR, and also the process of translation gives you parallel data. I think provenance is very key, whether it's speech data or text data. This all comes when we have academia working very closely. So if we create more such machinery, and that's why I keep talking about ecosystem, and India AI mission is actually a great example of that, where we can retain our talent and the talent gets to work even during the degree process with cutting edge research. And honestly, that's how we can also make affordable AI, right? With all due respect to Vivek, I still feel there's a lot we need to accomplish to democratize the use of AI. And in the number of bulbs that are on here, do we need all of them? We probably don't, right? And that's how data is. We're just throwing data. We actually built out this open source platform called Decile, decile.org, which uses a lot of submodularity, which is diminishing returns of data, brings human in the loop through data programming paradigm. This happened largely the pre-LLM era because we work closely with industry. In fact, I happen to be co-founding a company as well. And we built on open source, which we contributed back here. If we can keep doing that and make open source really open source, right? Recipes open, provenance open. I think the academia will get a lot more excited. The students will get excited and see opportunities.
Right. Mitesh?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, I'm very convinced, right, that there's no lack of talent in this country. Right? And being at our vantage point as faculty in IITs, we see this on a daily basis. Right? I mean, we really interact with very smart, brilliant students who can do things which are meant to be done. I think what is important is for us to make sure that we create those pathways for. Right? One sort of a pet thing for me, and I hope it gets done at some point, is that in India, it's not just that people are not capable or is there not enough funding and all. There's also a lot of social pressure, right? I mean, that after you have finished BTech, you're at a certain age, where is the job? Now, can we have sort of institutional support to sort of encourage this? Like one idea could be, can you have an MTech in entrepreneurship, right? So after your BTech, you're there for 2 more years, right? You're not doing regular coursework, research, reading papers and all, but just building something. And that's sort of encapsulated in a degree. So you have the societal phase, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm not just like whiling away my time. And also make sure that through that degree you sort of get some funding and so on. And those structures are built so that more people can take this risk a bit more safely. I know it's a risk and safe in the same sentence, but yeah, I wish something like that happens, creating more structure, more pathways for the younger generation to contribute in this.
Yeah, I'd just like to add one thing. I think we've hired some of the smartest young people in India, and hopefully the next Arvind is from.
It's already here. Right. So let's end with one. I think Vivek is very good at it. Give us one prediction for 2025 within the AI world. What prediction that we should look at?
Why don't we start from
Sure.
that side?
Yeah, I would really watch out for advancements in voice tech, right? I would think that voice tech will become much more accessible, much more accurate, even for Indian languages. That's what I would bet on, yeah.
I would bet on the fact that we'll have a lot of data efficient, compute efficient learning based out of Indian languages, leveraging the commonality. And that actually creates a great exemplar for the global south.
Right. Vivek?
I think lots of things for people which they use LLMs for will start using SLMs.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. We've come to the end of this session. I think if you all have questions, you can reach out to them off stage. But thank you so much, Vivek, Ganesh, and Mitesh.
Thank you.